See how good I can hit it today, boys. What's up, my dudes? There we go. What even is this? Spencer Turley making custom tracks and doing MX Simulator guides again. What are we doing, dog? Going back to 2016? Oh, man. This is what I was born to do, dog. This is what my whole channel's all about, bro. MX Simulator track reviews, custom tracks, and guides. Period. Like, God, dude. So anyways, this video is all about get a new controller on MX Simulator. Okay, this is probably the most overlooked aspect of this whole game, in my opinion, that people forget about. And I'm guilty of it too, okay? I was just guilty of it just like a race ago, a pro race ago, right? Riding with a controller that's just a little too loose. What starts to happen is, and the reason why this is such a big deal on MX Simulator in comparison to some other games, is the fact that MX Simulator is all about those little micro movements that you're making with those thumbsticks. So even if you have a controller that's just a little bit wore out, I'm not talking about dog beat wore out like, oh my God, you've had this controller for 3 years. Like, obviously, you're on another level with that. I'm talking just a controller that's like a little bit wore out is going to affect your ability to play MX Simulator, period. Because that's mainly what you're using is your thumbsticks. So, at least from my own personal experience, what I've kind of figured out is, if you play this game every single day for like 3 to 4 hours a day, if you get a brand spanking new, Xbox 360 controller or whatever, some of the other controllers might wear differently, right? But talking specifically about Xbox 360 controller, right? If you play this game every single day, 3 or 4 hours a day, it's going to last you probably about a month before you start noticing the thumbsticks really starting to loosen up on you, right? And it's going to start feeling like, specifically in the whoops, you'll notice it, because that's what the whoops, it's like the whole skill gap to whoops in this game is how balanced can you keep the bike, try not to like oversteer and overcorrect, which then it's almost like a new controller on MX Simulator sort of builds has a certain stability in itself. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, let's just say you're riding on a controller that you've been playing with every single day for a month, and then let's just say you turn your stability up by 10 with that controller. That would be the same difference as having a brand spanking new controller with the lower stability. You understand what I'm saying? It almost creates its own stability with how new the controller's thumbsticks are. So you'll notice it in the whoops. You'll notice it in flat corners. Literally, like you'll notice it in those areas. I always like to use a little analogy. It's kind of like getting a fresh set of tires for, in real life. That's the same difference as getting a new controller on MX Simulator, man. Because your thumbsticks, every second that you're playing that game, from the time you get that new controller, your thumbsticks are getting looser and looser and looser and looser. And it kind of obviously goes through like a break-in period. It kind of feels weird at first when you get a brand spanking new controller. It goes through a break-in period, and then it kind of gets in that like prime zone, mojo zone feeling, right? Where you got it just worked in, you got the controller just worked in enough, but it's not wore out yet. And that probably lasts for like 2 to 3 weeks maybe. And then it starts slowly but surely getting worn out, right? And you got to understand, when you get to the top level of this game, 450 Pro, RF, main events and stuff, every little thing you can do, you got to do it, right? If it's getting a controller every month, you got to do it, because this game is such a skill-gapped, next level. Everybody's taking it so serious at that level, right? Playing every single day. Everything's got to be sharp, right? It's just like how Tomac can't go out there with a half-worn-out tire and expect to win a Supercross race. It's not going to happen. It's the same difference, right? Everybody's putting in every little thing they can with being on the right dyno, perfect gearing, a super good setup that they're used to, all these other little elements, and the controller is just as important as all those other things. So, yeah, if you're a beginner at the game, getting a new controller every month is probably not going to be that big of a deal. Like, it's probably not going to help you all that much, but if you're playing every single day and you're really used to exactly how much that bike is going to steer when you're turning that thumbstick on the exact, whatever stability, advanced stability that you have going on, and then you're playing every single day for a month straight, and then your controller starts loosening up, that's going to affect everything. It's going to affect, you're going to start sliding out in corners. Your ass end's going to start skating out in the whoops more. There's all these other little things that are going to start happening. Kind of like you got a little bit more of a wore out tire, right? You can kind of, sort of put it all together like that. So yeah, I just wanted to make another little video on this. I know I have made a guide video on this before, quite a ways back there, but I just wanted to refresh everybody's memory, remind everybody how important it really is to keep a fresh controller on deck. And the way I personally like to do it is I'll go buy a box of them, dog. I'll go buy like 10 controllers at one time, so I've always got one there ready. Right? So when one of them starts, once you play this game enough, over enough years, you know when a controller's starting to get a little too wore out. And then it eventually gets to the point where your actual, like, click down of the thumbstick stop working properly. That's the next thing that'll go. Your thumbstick movement will start getting loose, and then the clicking of the thumbsticks will stop working properly, right? Depending on what you have that set to, that could be pretty devastating. So it gets to a point where you have to go to a new controller, or change your button layout, or, whatever. But yeah, I mean, like, if your controller's just looser feeling, then yeah, you can still ride with that, but, like, I don't know. You're just not going to be quite as effective as you would be with a more, a newer controller. You're just not going to be quite as on point, right? And all that shit matters like tenfold when you're at the 450 Pro level. All that little stuff matters, man. Everybody's wide open everywhere. It's all a game of inches, millimeters, rather. It's, you know what I'm saying? It's all, especially in Supercross. I mean, it's just, you're one little millisecond away, one little millislide away from not pulling the whole shot and then not making it to a main event or whatever the case may be, right? So it affects everything, and I just wanted to remind everybody because it's so important. Like, you kind of get in this zone of thinking your controller's nothing wrong with it, but I'm telling you, if you play this game 4 or 5 hours a night every single day, in about a month, you're going to start noticing a difference in how much you're sliding in the corners. It's actually, your controller starts getting wore, but it starts getting wore to the point of, like, you just have less control over it, right? Because you're losing that micro adjustment you can make with your thumbstick, that micro movement you can make with your thumbstick. You start to lose that whenever it starts getting wore out a little bit, right? And depending on what kind of, stability you're running or advanced stability, that could be super detrimental if you're starting to get like loss of control, depending on how loose you have your stability, right? So it all just kind of plays into it, but just a little guide video I wanted to make. Don't sleep on new controllers on MX Simulator, because it's super important, dog. Just as important as anything else in the game. So, if you're over there struggling, you're wondering why you can't hit something, or you're wondering why why all of a sudden you're not doing very good on a track, or why all of a sudden you're wrecking on the whoops all the time, even though that's just normal to begin with. But I'm just saying, if you're out of the ordinary, right, wrecking on whoops more than normal, and you didn't change anything setup-wise or anything like that, look into getting a new controller, dog. You'll thank me later, dog. Thank me later. Thanks for nothing. Thanks for bluffing. Dog, for real though, like, it's a big thing, man. It's a big deal. Just like getting new tires in real life, bro. Same thing. And it also goes into a whole nother element of, like, if you start getting used to riding with newer controllers, it's kind of like you start getting used to riding with new tires all the time, right? Like, Tomac's used to riding with brand spanking new tires, whereas if you're just a local riding boy, you're probably used to those half wore out tires, right? So you're used to the slide that you're getting and all that. So when you get a new tire, it's like, oh my God, what is this? Whiskey throttle, flip over backwards, whatever. But for Tomac, he's used to a brand new tire. So it's kind of like the more pro racing you do in this game, the more you play this game, it's like you start getting used to that new controller, like you got a new tire, right? So then it just kind of all plays into it. But either way, man, get a new controller on MX Simulator. It's worth it. It's worth your time, bro. I mean, if you're going to the level of playing this game every single night for 4 or 5 hours every day, trying to actually legit like pro race in this game, you need to be buying a controller just about every month or two, right? Now, if you're playing this game like, you know, every other day or every couple of days or only playing it like 1 or 2 hours a night, then you don't have to buy a new controller every month, right? I'm talking about specifically if you're really like hardcore training 3-4 hours every single night as hard as you can go, you know, hucking thumbsticks doing this the whole time. Like, that's what I mean by you need a new controller every month if you're doing that. If not, you could probably go, you know, 3-4 months without a new controller, but you never want to go more than really that, I would say. You never ever want to go more than like 3 or 4 months. Some of you dudes that are riding with controllers that you've had for like a year, 2 years, what are you doing, dog? What are you even doing? I don't know how you even do that, but it's hurting you big time. It's hurting your ability to control the bike and everything. You know, you kind of get into a pickle there when you start trying to adjust your stability, adjust your advanced stability, but then you know you got a controller that's wearing out at the same time, so then that's affecting how your stability is feeling as you go through the days of trying to, you know, adjust and change your stability. So it's one of those things you want to keep your controller fresh. You want to keep that thing fresh so that you're staying on a fresh base, like setup base, right? And it's not changing it too much with your thumbsticks and not tricking your mind into thinking, you know, you need a different stability, right? So that all kind of plays into it. But either way, I got all of my MX Simulator guide videos in a playlist on my front page. So all you got to do is go look for that and you'll find it. And you just got to click on my YouTube channel and scroll down a little bit. I got them on there. So yeah, man, either way, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.